Hey guys, welcome back to another special edition of Tamayo Creative. I wanted to start off by saying thanks so much for the love and the support that last video introducing my cousin Nick Clemens got. The guy's a total baller. Nick, I wanted to say thanks again for coming on and doing that with me. It was absolutely awesome. Nick brought the production value, he brought the lighting, he brought the sound. I mean, everything that made that last video so crisp was all due to him. I wish I could produce the exact same look that he has been able to, show me different ways and different techniques on how to produce. What's really cool for all those who enjoyed that last video was while it was only 15 minutes long, it was more of an intro as to who Nick is and what he does. We actually ended up getting an hour and 6 minutes of footage in that interview, and what that enabled me to do was actually splice out different videos that could take a deeper dive on each individual topic. For example, the video that I'm introducing right now talks a lot more about his cameras, his lighting equipment, and his sound equipment, and we really take a nerdy deep dive on exactly every piece that he uses. And what I'll make sure to do is I'll actually chapter the video timeline here below, so if there's a topic that you are a little bit more interested in than the other ones, you can go ahead and fast forward it. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching this video, and all I can say is that I hope that you enjoy this nerdy conversation as much as Nick and I did. Here, educate somebody who, like me, only works in graphic design. What is this film camera that you use?
Yeah, so in the grand scheme of things, these lenses or these cameras are not that expensive. These are the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras. We're running a 4K and a 6K. But they're kind of one of those things, they're so unbelievable that they're kind of hard to talk about in a way.
Yeah.
Because for someone who has never used them, you hear a 6K camera. That's amazing.
Right.
And I'm like, there's some compromises, like keep in mind. But basically, these are about, if you can afford them, they are about the best starter cinema camera you can buy. So the thing you have to keep in mind, they both have about 13 stops of dynamic range, which means a stop of light is a doubling of light. So you're gonna have 13 doublings of light from your darkest to your brightest part of your frame. So the shadows to the sun before you get too bright and it's just white and you can't see any detail, or it's just black and you can't see any detail, which is the perfect stat. Like the cameras go up to 16, 18 now, but 13 is that is a great benchmark. If you're at 13, you're good.
Sweet.
But they cost $1,200 and $2,000 respectively. $1,200 for the 4K, $2,000 for the 6K.
Yeah.
And they shoot B-RAW, which is a full RAW format, which means in post you can change your ISO. We should get into that though, because that's a lie.
Oh, really? Okay.
Red included, red and Blackmagic. I know this is a tangent, but if you research cameras and you see red and you see Blackmagic and they're like, you can change your exposure in post. You can't. You're not doing that. That's not what's happening. It's a total lie. It's marketing jargon. but what you can actually do that actually, in my opinion, matters way more is you can change all of your color without degrading your image. So say on your EOS M, you accidentally made it really orange. As you try to bring it back blue, you can do that, but as the more you have to fix it, the more the image is going to start to kind of pixelate and fall apart.
Right.
With these, I didn't even bother setting our white balance because in post I'm just going to hit a button and I'm going to set it to the white balance we wanted, which is daylight. So you can change all of that. You have so much control and the bit rate's crazy high, so you're able to do whatever you want with the footage. And on top of that, Blackmagic RAW is incredibly easy to run, relatively. Like 4K, if you're shooting in H.264 4K, Blackmagic RAW is going to be harder to run. But if you compare it to Red RAW, it's nothing. I mean, your laptop could play back 4K Blackmagic RAW footage pretty well. Probably 2 or 3 streams of it.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because I've seen that thing skip a lot of beats just trying to process 4K footage.
As soon as you put on a color grade or a LUT or something, it'll start to drop frames. But just playing it back, it won't care. It's super easy to play back.
Oh, that's good to know.
But so the trade-off is these cameras are really cheap. The quality is unbeatable for the price. But the downside is you have no autofocus. You have no stabilization. You have no tools to assist you. It is one-to-one. Everything you do to the camera is what's happening. There's nothing to help you. There's no, besides that color grading for white balance.
Yep.
There is nothing to help you run this camera. You need to understand what everything does. That said, the menus are really simple. It has one of the best menu layouts of any camera I've ever seen. So if you're a beginner, once you learn what ISO, aperture, and shutter speed are, you can set all your exposure. I mean, as filmmakers, we don't really touch shutter speed unless you're changing frame rates.
Right.
On these cameras, I'll just say that whole ISO changing thing, that's a lie. You should really only be shooting at 2 different ISOs. So really, you shouldn't be touching that. So really, all you're changing
Is the f-stop
is your f-stop.
Yep.
Adding ND and just making sure it's in focus, because no camera can fix focus in post, but they don't have autofocus.
That's true. That's true. I feel like that's something that, I know that Apple in the release of their new phones is trying to do that, which is actually kind of impressive.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like to be able to go in post and actually change the focus of the subject of your shot. So I feel like that would be something like Blackmagic or maybe Red to incorporate into their cameras would be kind of cool. Nick, I want to piggyback off of some software talk. For this channel, I use Premiere Pro, which is honestly I absolutely love, because as a graphic designer, I've kind of dove completely into the Adobe suite of Photoshop, Lightroom, Illustrator, all that kind of stuff. So Premiere Pro was just the default for me. But I understand that you use DaVinci Resolve. Can you kind of explain why you prefer DaVinci over Premiere?
Yeah, so it definitely started as a money thing. But so it's like when I started, like I was on Final Cut 7, I rode that into the ground for as long as I could. Because like I had Final Cut 10, hated it. So I switched over to Premiere because it was the closest thing to Final Cut 7.
Right.
And I used that probably 2-3 years in college. And it was fine, but like with the college discount, you're paying $20 a month. And then after the first year, it goes up to 40, I think. Which like I can afford, and you're making money off of it. So it's not the end of the world. But at the same time, all of this has been going on, I had been experimenting with, I think it was DaVinci Resolve 12.5.
Okay.
And at that point, it was just a color grading program. And I was like, color grading is so much fun. I love this. But my Mac Mini that I have doesn't have a graphics card and can barely run it. Like
it's on fire when you're trying to...
Yeah, well, I mean, the amount of like corrupted clips, because it needed that that VRAM to like buffer into.
Yeah.
And because there was no VRAM, what would happen is you would export the video, and if it didn't fail, you'd get random like purple frames.
Yep.
Where it just couldn't render it. But so I ran that for a really long time. Got a computer upgrade, and like just like in the background. And then I remember in like 13 they introduced a timeline, but you couldn't really edit on it. What it was a timeline for you could take your Premiere project, import it the timeline into Resolve, and then you could color grade it and send it back.
Yeah.
And then they announced DaVinci Resolve 14 beta, which is when they were like, we have made DaVinci Resolve an editing program. And I was like, that's sick.
Yeah.
So I downloaded it and I started using that because it was free. So DaVinci Resolve had a free tier that had, 95% of the functionality anybody could ever ask for.
Right.
So I downloaded that newest version of Resolve that I'd been from, coming up from 13. And I really started using it full time. It was a little buggy because it was their first one. It was missing some features. But as soon as they launched, as soon as they came out of beta, I was like, you know what? I like this more. I like the color grading integration, and I just discontinued my Premiere subscription because like you're paying all this money for it, and it comes with Illustrator and Lightroom and Photoshop, and like they're all great apps, but really all I used was Premiere and Audition. But in DaVinci, which honestly now with the new M1 Max runs as fast, if not better than Final Cut X in some use cases.
Oh yeah.
They're just like, why would you ever want anything else?
You know what that actually does? It segues me perfect to my next question. I also understand that a ton of creatives use Mac. You use Windows, and you specifically use a Razer laptop. Can you just explain to me why you prefer to use Windows over Mac? So many people like use Mac.
It really came down to just really poor timing on Mac for Apple's part.
Yeah.
I was finally looking to upgrade my Mac Mini, I want to say in 2015.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for Techtober or whatever when they announced the new Macs, and it was the year they announced the very first Touch Bar Mac.
2016.
And my whole thing was like, I was going into it and I was like, Apple has great software, they have really good processors, but where they've always lacked is graphics cards.
Always. And the integrated stuff.
When I think it was 2013 or maybe 2012 was the last NVIDIA Mac that had like an NVIDIA graphics card. And at this point, this is also the same year that NVIDIA went, hey, so you know how like laptop graphics cards kind of suck? We figured out how to take your full-blown desktop graphics card and put it in a laptop, and you only lose about 10% of your performance. Huge deal. Like it was massive. And there were rumors that like, well, Apple might switch back to NVIDIA from AMD because of this huge upgrade.
Yeah.
And they launched the computer. It had the really bad keyboard. It had the touch bar, which I actually never took issue with.
That keyboard did suck.
Yeah, had the really bad keyboard and had the 4 Thunderbolt ports, which I also didn't care about the Thunderbolt ports. I was already on the Thunderbolt bandwagon. I was like, Thunderbolt's amazing.
Yeah.
And that was actually a requirement when I was switching. I was like, I need a laptop on Windows
Thunderbolt.
with Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
So it was just really bad timing because I had been researching the Razer and I had been researching the Mac. And people are like, why would you buy a Razer? It's really expensive. You can get a cheaper Windows laptop that has the same performance, yada, yada, yada. I was like, remember, I'm coming from Mac. I want something built like a Mac that feels good in your hands, that looks professional, minus the really, awesome Razer
RGB
logo. the little snake on the back.
Yeah.
You can just skin it. But like, I wanted something that felt and looked professional, that wasn't over an inch thick, that had Thunderbolt, that like I had like a list of requirements. Under an inch, had Thunderbolt, and like had like a full metal build.
Right.
And Razer fit all of those boxes. I would never recommend one. I can't recommend one because of the amount I've had them fail on me.
Yeah, believe it.
Razer now, instead of just being like, throw all the power at it, damn the heat, now is like, well, we're just gonna downclock the processor. So like, but it still gets kind of hot, and I'm kind of thinking like, well, in 2-3 years I'll just take a hammer to it and like and I'll get, at that time maybe I'll switch to Mac, like because these new M1s and what this whole conversation has led up to real quick, these new M1s I am so excited for. That like, and the timing works out because as much as I want one right now, software's not there.
They're still running through Rosetta.
Yeah, software's not there, and actually, as awesome as the M1 Max is, they've checked the performance in video editing, and right now, that's really the one. I think in all the reviews I've seen about these new M1s, the one thing that is like there and ready to go is like video editing, and that's what everyone talks about. They're like, the new M1s for video editing are sick, and they are, because they work as well unplugged as they do plugged in. And that's something I cannot say about my computer. I enjoy both user experiences. I'm just on Windows because it served my needs better. And it's looking like Apple in the coming years may start serving my needs better.